From earthquakes that rang church bells 1,000 miles away, to caves that go on forever, from a river longer than the Mississippi, to mountains older than the Appalachians, Missouri's geography reads like science fiction. Stick around because by the end, you won't believe this state is real. Starting at number 50, Missouri has more caves than any other state except Tennessee. Over 7,300 documented caves carved through limestone bedrock. That's roughly one cave for every 840 residents, making Missouri a literal Swiss cheese of underground passages and chambers. These aren't just tiny holes either. Some caves stretch for miles underground with massive chambers, underground rivers, and formations millions of years old. Missouri's nickname, the Cave State, isn't just marketing. It's geological reality that attracts spelunkers from around the world. At number 49, the Missouri River is longer than the Mississippi River. Yes, you heard that right. At 2,341 miles, the Missouri outstrips the Mississippi's 2,320 miles, making it the longest river in North America before they even merged together. When Lewis and Clark explored westward, they followed the Missouri River all the way to Montana. This muddy giant drains 1/6 of the United States, carrying sediment from the Rocky Mountains through the heart of the continent to its meeting with the Mississippi. Coming in at number 48, Missouri touches 8 other states, tied with Tennessee for the most state borders in America. It shares boundaries with Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, creating one of the most geographically connected states. This central position made Missouri a critical crossroads during westward expansion and the Civil War. Being surrounded by so many neighbors also means Missouri experiences an incredible mix of regional cultures, climates, and ecosystems all colliding within its borders. At number 47, the New Madrid seismic zone in Missouri's Boothpeel produced the most powerful earthquakes in U.S. history during 1811 to 1812. These quakes were so violent, they temporarily reversed the flow of the Mississippi River and rang church bells in Boston. Scientists estimate the largest quake hit, magnitude 7.7 or higher. Eyewitnesses reported the ground rolling in waves, trees snapping like matchsticks, and entire islands disappearing into the river. Today, seismologists warn this fault zone could produce another massive earthquake affecting millions. Number 46 might surprise you. Missouri sits at the exact center of population for the United States. A marker near Hartville identifies the spot where the country's population would balance perfectly if every person weighed the same amount. This center has been moving steadily westward throughout U.S. history. As populations shifted, Missouri has held this distinction since the early 2000s, representing the demographic heart of America, where East meets West in terms of where people actually live. At number 45, the Ozark Mountains aren't actually mountains at all. They're a massive eroded plateau. What looks like mountain peaks are really the remnants of an ancient plateau that once stood much higher before millions of years of erosion carved it. This geological quirk means the Ozarks formed completely differently than the Rockies or Appalachians. Instead of tectonic plates pushing rock upward, the Ozarks were created by uplift, followed by relentless erosion cutting deep valleys, leaving behind these ancient hills and hollers. Number 44 is wild. Missouri has both the southernmost point in the Midwest and contains more southern culture than any northern state. The Boothpeel region extends below the 36°30 parallel, making it geographically southern. This weird panhandle was created when a wealthy landowner petitioned Congress in 1818 to be included in Missouri instead of Arkansas. He wanted to remain part of Missouri for business reasons, and somehow Congress agreed, creating this bizarre geographical anomaly. At number 43, Missouri experiences one of the most extreme temperature ranges in North America. The state has recorded temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit and as high as 118 degrees. A staggering 158-degree temperature range. This extreme variation happens because Missouri sits at the crossroads of multiple climate zones with no mountains to block air masses. Arctic blasts collide with Gulf humidity, creating weather so unpredictable that locals joke you can experience all 4 seasons in 1 week. Coming in at number 42, the Gateway Arch in St. Louis is taller than it is wide, and it's also taller than the Statue of Liberty, the Washington Monument, and Big Ben. At 630 feet, it's the tallest man-made monument in the United States. But here's the geographical mind-bender. The arc marks the historical starting point of Western expansion. Everything west of St. Louis was once considered the frontier. The city served as the last major supply point, before pioneers headed into largely unmapped territory. Number 41 will blow your mind. Missouri has more native fish species than any other state except Tennessee and Alabama. Over 200 species of fish swim in Missouri's rivers, streams, and lakes, creating one of the most biodiverse freshwater ecosystems. This incredible diversity exists because Missouri sits at the confluence of major watersheds. The Mississippi, Missouri, and dozens of other rivers create habitats ranging from cold, clear Ozark streams to warm, muddy plains rivers, each supporting completely different fish communities. At number 40, Taumsauk Mountain is Missouri's highest point at just 1,772 feet above sea level. To put that in perspective, that's lower than the base elevation of Denver, Colorado, which sits at 5,280 feet. Despite being modest by mountain standards, Taumsauk represents the ancient core of the Ozark Plateau. The rock here is over 1 billion years old, making it some of the oldest exposed stone in North America. You're literally standing on the bones of an ancient continent. Number 39 is bizarre. Missouri's Mark Twain National Forest is divided into 9 separate sections scattered across 1.5 million acres. It's like someone took a giant forest and cut it into puzzle pieces, spreading them throughout southern Missouri. This fragmentation happened because of the region's settlement patterns and the selective purchase of logged or worn-out farmland during the Great Depression. The Forest Service bought back degraded land piece by piece, creating this unusual patchwork of protected wilderness. At number 38, the Mississippi River forms Missouri's entire eastern border. But here's the catch: the border isn't the current river channel. It's the channel from the 1820s, frozen in time by legal agreements. This means the Mississippi has shifted course over 2 centuries, creating bizarre situations where Illinois land sits west of Missouri land, and vice versa. Islands have switched states, and property lines cut through modern river channels in completely illogical ways. Number 37 is fascinating. Missouri has the only remaining Ice Age lichen community in the world outside of Alaska. This ancient ecosystem survived in cool north-facing bluffs along the Merrimack River when glaciers retreated 10,000 years ago. These lichens are literally living fossils, unchanged since the last ice age. They cling to life in microhabitats where temperatures stay just cool enough. Scientists call these places glacial refugia, tiny pockets where ice age species survive in a warmer world. At number 36, Missouri contains the world's largest pecan tree, standing 130 feet tall with a crown spread of 110 feet. This massive tree grows along the Mississippi River floodplain, where deep, rich soil provides perfect conditions. But here's what's crazy: pecans aren't even native to Missouri. They naturally grow further south. But the Mississippi River floodplain creates a microclimate warm and wet enough for pecans to thrive this far north. It's a southern tree growing in the Midwest. Number 35 will surprise you. Missouri has more miles of streams and rivers than any state except Alaska. Over 110,000 miles of flowing water crisscross Missouri, enough to wrap around Earth's equator 4.5 times. This massive water network exists because Missouri's geology and topography create perfect conditions for streams. The Ozark Plateau's limestone bedrock forces groundwater to surface as countless springs, feeding an incredibly dense network of creeks, streams, and rivers throughout the state. At number 34, Elephant Rock State Park contains giant granite boulders that are 1.5 billion years old. These massive stones, some weighing hundreds of tons, look exactly like a train of circus elephants marching across the landscape. These rocks formed deep underground as molten granite slowly cooled. Over 1 billion years, erosion stripped away softer rock layers, exposing these incredibly hard granite cores. Water then seeped into cracks, froze, expanded, and gradually separated the granite into elephant-shaped boulders. Number 33 is mind-blowing. Missouri sits atop one of the world's largest aquifers. The Ozark Plateau Aquifer holds trillions of gallons of water stored in porous limestone, providing drinking water for millions and keeping springs flowing year-round. This underground ocean formed over millions of years as rainfall slowly percolated through limestone, dissolving it and creating a honeycomb of water-filled passages. Some of this water is thousands of years old, having entered the aquifer before the pyramids were built. At number 32, Missouri experiences more tornadoes per square mile than Oklahoma or Kansas in certain regions. The state averages 45 tornadoes annually, with some counties getting hit repeatedly due to unique geographical features that favor tornado formation. Missouri's position at the convergence of Gulf moisture, Rocky Mountain dry air, and Canadian cold fronts creates a tornado factory. The state has no mountains to disrupt storm systems, allowing supercells to organize and spawn twisters across the flat plains and rolling hills. Number 31 is shocking. The St. Francois Mountains in Missouri are older than the Appalachians. These ancient peaks formed 1.5 billion years ago, when North America was still being assembled from smaller landmasses colliding together. Today, these mountains are worn down to their roots, barely 1,000 feet high, but geologists believe they once rivaled the Himalayas in height. Billions of years of erosion have stripped away miles of rock, leaving only the incredibly hard volcanic core. At number 30, Missouri contains the largest concentration of freshwater springs in the United States outside of Florida. Big Spring alone pumps out 286 million gallons daily, enough to fill 433 Olympic swimming pools every single day. These massive springs occur because the Ozarks' porous limestone acts like a giant sponge, absorbing rainfall across hundreds of square miles. Water travels through underground channels and resurfaces as crystal-clear springs with constant temperatures year-round, creating unique ecosystems. Number 29 will amaze you. Missouri's Current River was the first river designated for protection under the National Wild and Scenic Rivers Act in 1964. It set the precedent for protecting free-flowing rivers across America. The Current River earned this honor because it remains one of the cleanest, most pristine river systems in the United States. Fed by massive springs pumping crystal-clear water, the river maintains remarkable clarity and supports incredible biodiversity, despite human presence nearby. At number 28, Kansas City sits on the edge of one of Earth's most dramatic elevation changes. Within the city limits, elevation drops nearly 300 feet from the western hills to the Missouri River Valley, creating neighborhoods at wildly different heights. This dramatic topography exists because Kansas City straddles the border between the Great Plains and the central lowlands. The city literally sits where flat prairie suddenly drops off toward river valleys, creating stunning bluffs and some of the most challenging urban planning scenarios. Number 27 is unbelievable. Missouri has a lost mountain range buried under the northern plains. The State Genevieve Fault Zone marks where ancient mountains once stood before being completely buried by sediment over hundreds of millions of years. These ghost mountains occasionally make their presence known through earthquakes along the fault zone. Oil drilling has revealed the buried peaks and valleys beneath thousands of feet of sediment, a hidden landscape that predates the dinosaurs by hundreds of millions of years. At number 26, the Lake of the Ozarks has more shoreline than California's entire ocean coast. With over 1,150 miles of shoreline, this artificial lake created by damming the Osage River became one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. The lake's insanely long shoreline exists because engineers didn't create a smooth reservoir. They flooded a landscape of twisting river valleys and countless coves. Every bend in the ancient river system became a finger of the lake, multiplying the shoreline exponentially. Number 25 is crazy. Missouri contains the northernmost permanent population of armadillos in the world. These armored mammals, native to South America, have been steadily migrating north and have now established breeding populations in southern Missouri. Climate change and warmer winters allow armadillos to survive further north than ever before. Missouri represents the current northern limit of their expansion. Scientists watch Missouri's armadillo population as a real-time indicator of how warming temperatures enable species to shift ranges. At number 24, Missouri experiences some of North America's most dramatic fall foliage because it sits at the intersection of three major forest types. Eastern hardwoods, southern pines, and prairie grasslands all meet here, creating an explosion of color. The Ozarks particularly showcase this diversity, with sugar maples turning brilliant red, hickories going golden, and oaks shifting to deep burgundy, all mixed with evergreen pines. The varied elevation and microclimates mean autumn colors last longer here than almost anywhere else. Number 23 will shock you. St. Louis sits on the same latitude as Northern California, southern Spain, and central Turkey. Yet Missouri experiences far more extreme weather than any of these regions because it lacks oceans or mountains to moderate temperature. This explains why Missouri can feel like the Arctic in January and the tropics in August despite being at a mild latitude. The jet stream swings wildly across the region with nothing to stop it, dragging extreme weather from every direction. At number 22, Missouri contains sinkholes that can swallow entire buildings. The state has over 15,000 documented sinkholes, with new ones forming regularly as underground cave systems collapse and the ground above suddenly drops away. These sinkholes form because Missouri's limestone bedrock slowly dissolves in acidic groundwater, creating hidden caves. Eventually, the cave ceiling becomes too thin to support the weight above, and boom, the surface collapses. Some sinkholes form gradually, others open in minutes. Number 21 is fascinating. Missouri's Bootheel region has some of the flattest land on Earth. This former Mississippi River floodplain is so level that farmers must create artificial drainage because water has nowhere to flow naturally. This extreme flatness exists because the Mississippi River spent thousands of years depositing perfectly level layers of sediment during floods. The land is so flat that a 1-foot elevation change can determine whether a field floods or stays dry during heavy rains. At number 20, Missouri has the world's most diverse ecosystem of freshwater mussels, with over 70 species living in its rivers and streams. These filter feeders are living water purifiers, and Missouri's rivers contain more species than anywhere else on the planet. This incredible diversity exists because Missouri's rivers connect multiple watersheds, each evolving distinct mussel species. However, many species now face extinction from pollution and habitat loss. The state that was once the mussel capital of the world is now racing to save them. Number 19 will blow your mind. Missouri's Table Rock Lake is built on a foundation of mountains. The Ozark hills surrounding the lake are actually ancient mountains worn down to stumps, making this a rare case of a lake surrounded by billion-year-old peaks. When you stand on Table Rock's shore, you're looking at some of North America's oldest geology. The mountains here existed before the Appalachians formed, before life crawled onto land, even before there was significant oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. You're surrounded by ancient stone. At number 18, Missouri experiences one of the highest lightning strike densities in the United States. The state averages over 1 million cloud-to-ground lightning strikes annually, with some counties getting hammered by electrical storms repeatedly throughout summer. This happens because Missouri sits where humid Gulf air collides with dry western air, creating powerful thunderstorms. The state lacks mountains to dissipate these storms, so they grow massive. When these supercells develop, they generate incredible amounts of lightning across the landscape. Number 17 is unbelievable. Missouri has sand dunes in the middle of the state, left behind by Ice Age winds. These ancient dunes near the Missouri River Valley formed 15,000 years ago when glacial outwash created vast sandy plains. Strong winds during the last ice age picked up this sand and created dune fields similar to a desert. When the climate warmed and vegetation returned, the dunes stabilized. Today they're covered with prairie grass, but underneath lies a perfectly preserved dune landscape. At number 16, Missouri contains one of North America's most unique geological features, the Precambrian igneous knobs. These volcanic rocks punching through sedimentary layers are 1.5 billion years old and represent the exposed core of an ancient volcanic mountain range. These knobs are Missouri's geological time machines. The rock here formed when Earth's atmosphere was still toxic, when the only life was simple bacteria, and when Missouri was part of a completely different continent in a completely different position on the planet. Number 15 is incredible. Missouri has the only wild population of Ozark hellbenders, North America's largest salamander species. These bizarre amphibians grow over 2 feet long and have remained virtually unchanged for 65 million years. Hellbenders only survive in Missouri's coldest, clearest, most oxygen-rich streams, making them incredibly sensitive environmental indicators. They require specific rocky habitats and pristine water quality. Their presence in a stream means that ecosystem is still functioning perfectly after thousands of years. At number 14, Missouri experiences what meteorologists call the St. Louis heat island effect, one of the most intense urban heat anomalies in America. Downtown St. Louis can be 20 degrees hotter than surrounding countryside on summer nights. This extreme heat island occurs because St. Louis sits in a natural bowl surrounded by bluffs, trapping heat. Add millions of square feet of heat-absorbing pavement and buildings, and the city becomes a furnace. This geography amplifies the urban heat effect beyond most U.S. cities. Number 13 will shock you. Missouri's Merrimack River Basin contains the highest concentration of rare and endangered species in the Midwest. Over 70 species found nowhere else on Earth live in this single watershed's unique habitats. This biodiversity hotspot exists because the Merrimack's varied geology creates dozens of distinct microhabitats. Each cave system, spring-fed stream, and limestone glade hosts species that evolved there and nowhere else. It's the Midwest's answer to the Amazon in terms of endemism. At number 12, Missouri sits on top of some of the world's highest-grade iron ore deposits. The Iron Mountain deposits near Pilot Knob contain iron ore so pure it was used to make Union Army cannons during the Civil War. These deposits formed 1.5 billion years ago from ancient volcanic activity. The iron is so concentrated in some locations that magnetic anomalies affect compasses. Missouri's iron once fueled America's Industrial Revolution, with ore so rich it needed minimal processing before use. Number 11 is mind-boggling. Missouri has natural bridges formed by erosion that rival Utah's famous arches. The Pickle Creek area contains sandstone natural bridges and arches carved by water over millions of years. These hidden wonders exist because Missouri's sandstone layers vary in hardness. Water exploits weak layers, carving tunnels that eventually create natural bridges. Most people associate natural bridges with the desert Southwest, but Missouri's humid climate actually speeds up erosion. At number 10, Missouri experiences some of the worst flooding in United States history. The Great Flood of 1993 submerged entire towns, with the Mississippi and Missouri rivers merging into one massive inland sea covering millions of acres. Missouri's geography makes it uniquely vulnerable to catastrophic flooding. The state sits at the confluence of major river systems with vast floodplains. When heavy rains hit the entire Mississippi watershed simultaneously, Missouri becomes ground zero, where all that water converges. Number 9 is absolutely wild. Missouri has an entire town built inside a cave. Bridal Cave near Camdenton has hosted over 2,700 weddings, making it one of the most popular underground venues in America. But Missouri's caves have served even more practical purposes throughout history. During Prohibition, bootleggers used caves for hiding illegal alcohol. In the 1950s, companies discovered cave temperatures stay constant year-round, perfect for storing cheese, wine, and other products requiring stable conditions. At number 8, Missouri contains the most extensive lead mining district in the United States. The Southeast Missouri Lead District has produced over half of America's lead, with mines extending thousands of feet underground across multiple counties. This lead bonanza exists because 350 million years ago, hot mineral-rich fluids circulated through Missouri's limestone, depositing massive lead sulfide concentrations. The deposits are so rich and extensive that Missouri has been the nation's lead production leader for over a century. Number 7 will absolutely amaze you. Missouri's Big Springs pumps enough water in one day to supply New York City for 24 hours. This single spring produces 286 million gallons daily, making it one of the largest springs in North America. Big Springs' incredible flow occurs because it drains an underground watershed covering hundreds of square miles. Water that falls as rain throughout a huge area of the Ozarks funnels through underground passages and explodes from this single point in the earth. At number 6, Missouri sits directly on the 38th parallel, a latitude line that has divided nations and defined boundaries throughout history. This same parallel separates North and South Korea and was proposed as the division between slave and free states. Missouri's position on this geopolitically significant line wasn't coincidental. It made the state a battleground during the Civil War. Geography literally placed Missouri at the center of America's greatest conflict, with the 38th parallel running through its heartland. Number 5 is absolutely insane. Missouri contains underground rivers that dwarf surface streams. The Mammoth Cave system extends into Missouri with underground rivers carrying more water than many surface rivers, flowing in complete darkness through limestone passages. Scientists have traced underground rivers for miles using dye tests, watching water disappear into sinkholes and emerge days later at springs miles away. Missouri has entire watersheds flowing beneath your feet, carving massive passages through rock in perpetual night. At number 4, Missouri experiences what scientists call explosive soil creation. The lowest deposits along the Missouri River are the deepest in North America, with wind-blown soil over 100 feet deep in places, creating the richest agricultural land on the continent. This miracle soil formed during ice ages when glacial outwash created vast, unvegetated plains. Winds picked up this fine sediment and deposited it in massive blankets across Missouri. This is why Missouri's river valleys grow crops so abundantly. They sit on a century of wind-deposited fertility. Number 3 will blow your mind. Missouri has one of the only places in the world where you can see rock formations from the Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras, all exposed at the surface simultaneously. This geological layer cake, visible in Missouri's cliffs, represents nearly 2 billion years of Earth history in one location. You can literally put your hand on rocks that formed before complex life existed, then climb up and touch rocks from the age of dinosaurs. At number 2, Missouri sits at the exact intersection of 5 major North American ecosystems: eastern forests, southern swamps, western prairies, northern boreal influences, and Ozark highlands all converge in Missouri, creating North America's most biodiverse state by ecosystem representation. This makes Missouri a living laboratory where species from completely different ecological realms coexist. You can find cypress swamps within miles of desert-like glades, prairie grasses growing next to northern hardwood forests, its ecological chaos creating incredible biodiversity in one state. And finally, at number 1, Missouri's most insane geographical fact. The state experiences the widest variety of natural disasters in the United States. Earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, ice storms, heat waves, blizzards, and severe thunderstorms all regularly pummel Missouri. This happens because Missouri's geography places it at the intersection of every major climate system in North America. No mountains block weather, no ocean moderates temperature. Missouri is nature's punching bag, where every extreme finds a home. It's geographically positioned for maximum chaos, making it one of the most geologically and meteorologically intense places in the entire country.